and this is their first date.
Mm-hmm.
So this is fun, this is memorable, this is exciting. They have a great attitude. We're here for it.
I'm psyched.
This is like Mad Lib's first date, like Truman Show setup.
You are.
All right, everyone. I'm Jared.
And I'm Courtney.
Welcome to another episode of The Jared Gold Show. Courtney, can you tell us your occupation, please?
I am an intimacy and relationship coach, and I specialize in helping people through their dating process.
Got it. And I thought it'd be interesting to bring Courtney to the park and strike up random conversations with strangers to see what feels alive for them on this particular topic. And you know what? Maybe Courtney could chime in with her expertise. So let's see what people tell us. We don't know what to expect. You know, we have this general topic and we let people steer it where they want. So let's see what happens. All right, we have our fourth interviewees here. Tell us your names.
Michael.
Isabella.
They caught my eye. We're going to do a free product placement. This is an Austin-based company, or at least it was. They recently sold. Best Self. They had this Best Self intimacy deck. Right here, my eye caught it. I'm like, we're talking to these fine people on deep conversations related to intimacy. So thank you so much for joining us.
We met on Hinge.
The second person today that's had Hinge success.
We just set up the date for today.
And this is their first date.
Mm-hmm.
So this is fun, this is memorable, this is exciting. They have a great attitude. We're here for it.
I'm psyched.
Is there a particular aspect of this topic you find most interesting or most fun to talk about?
I can't really touch on this subject because this is my first time like dating and, you know, being out in this world.
Being your first date ever. I feel really honored that you're experiencing it with
also
us.
feel honored.
What about Michael made you want to go out on a first date with him?
Oh God. I really liked his energy in his photos. I liked his photo first and then he messaged me. I swear it's like, you like these men's photo or they'll like yours and they won't communicate with you.
Yeah.
And he said hi to me first and I was like, okay, this is nice because I wasn't used to that.
Yeah.
And I really we started to kind of banter, you know, back and forth and I really enjoyed that. I like how he communicates and how he seemed funny.
And I'm curious for you, Michael, what made you want to reach out to Isabella?
Obviously, I think something that people don't always want to admit out loud is that on Hinge, where the photos are available right in your face, the first thing was a physical attraction. Isabella is very much my type to the T. And she had really cool pictures. And she seemed like a genuinely nice person. And a lot of people that I seem to come across, especially around my age, on their bio, they'll be like, where are you going to take me out to dinner? Like, what am I going to get out of this? It's very common, and it kind of seemed like she was also down just to kind of meet somebody and see what happens.
Great. Has your dating experience been on Hinge in general? How long have you been on it?
Hinge has been, like I mentioned, the most successful app for me. The dating app designed to be deleted. And I was like, okay, I'm actually kind of looking for a connection. That'd be really cool. I actually met my last girlfriend on Hinge. Crazy story, but that was the second person I've been in love with.
We welcome sponsorships from Hinge. So this is your opportunity. I'll be sending this. This guy is not a plant. These people are real.
I was literally on for a week.
Good.
I think we kind of matched maybe like a few days after I got it.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm glad I met him first, so.
Yeah.
You mind if I just get into questions that I ask on a first date that are fun? Because this is kind of like you guys are adorable little young guinea pigs. We get to change your date. So I like to ask, for example, what are your passions and interests or things that you're excited about?
The one thing that I'm really passionate about and that I could see myself doing all my life is writing. I really enjoy it and it's just something that I found like myself in. But I also really enjoy like film and I would love to direct and I like bossing people around, so I think being a director would be great. And so doing something in that aspect and just being like creative. I love being creative and just I feel like I find who I am in that, you know.
But you've written a book.
It's not published, and I think there's like this superstition with writers, don't talk about it before it's like published.
What's
And
the book
see.
about?
It's kind of, well, I feel like I pulled a lot of my own, I don't know, thoughts and feelings towards this topic. It's about like life and death and like a relationship between a mother or a grandmother and a granddaughter, and I don't know, that's like space between life and death.
Michael, why did that intrigue you? And then also, what are your passions and interests or hobbies or things that bring you joy?
For a very long time, I didn't find joy in anything until very recently, like within the past 6 months or so. And it's music. I just started taking music seriously. I played in orchestra in middle school and high school, and I played the violin. I was pretty good, first chair. But the past 2 months, I have somebody in my life that's a sound engineer, and they're willing to teach me once a week for free. So I'm learning the bass, the guitar, the drums, and the piano right now, and I've never had anything in my life that I feel passionate about. And it's not so much just the topic of her passion, it's the fact that she has one. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing what you want or what your passion is. Like, I didn't know until 2 months ago. But it's something that I cherish so much, and I used to envy in other people how they had something that they found and loved. And hearing about that and like watching them, like just watching you talk about that is like a really special thing, and they're vulnerable for a few moments to talk about something that they really love. So for me right now, it's music, and I want to be a rock star. That's the goal.
Might need you to also score her future movies.
Yeah.
For context, Michael, you're 22.
Mm-hmm.
Isabella's 18.
Mm-hmm.
Courtney, I don't know about you, but I was a shithead at that age. So like,
At which one? Both?
both, all of it, all
Really?
of it.
Oh, the
Shithead
best.
for a while, well beyond. So that's why I was like, oh, look at these like adorable young people on their first date.
Yeah.
I think I do have the potential of being a shithead. However, I moved out at a relatively young age, and I think that kind of jump-started my developmental process of becoming an adult earlier. Definitely was a shithead, real bad.
What are you guys looking for, dating-wise?
Kind of like I mentioned before, very low expectations, just trying to figure out the field, but really at the end of the day, I want to meet someone that I love and that loves me back, and we respect each other, and somebody that I could build a life with. I was just telling her earlier, my dream since I was very small is to be a dad, and it still is. I've worked with kids a lot in the past, and it's just something that I really crave. So ideally, I want to meet the person that I could spend the rest of my life with.
You are a romantic, let me tell you.
I am.
Isabella,
gosh.
what are you looking for in general, not specifically with Michael looking into his eyes?
I don't know. It's kind of just like whatever happens, happens. I'm trying not to put so much like emphasis on, certain things and certain people and all that kind of stuff. I'm like just trying to live my life more like in the present moment, try not to think about the future, because I feel like I've just like done that all my life. I'm still so young. I've always kind of like wanted to get married at a younger age. I don't know, just whatever will happen.
Courtney, I'm sure you have some favorite first date questions you like to ask. This is like Mad Lib's first date, like Truman Show set up.
You're doing good. You are.
Sure. So, based on my core values and my standards in dating, the number one question I ask someone is typically, what have you recently learned about yourself?
I found I kind of like would underestimate myself a lot, and coming up on 2 years ago, I was bit by my dog in the face, and that just changed my life because I learned a lot about myself and how compassionate I could be, how much of a strong woman I was, and how resilient I could be.
First of all, that was cool. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I think my favorite thing is almost the same as yours. I'm not a very traditionally masculine man, and I was in the military for 4 years. And that was a really hard thing growing up in South Carolina, being the way that I am. There's nothing wrong with it, but being an emotional boy that's not very manly is not something that women or girls, I guess, at that age would be looking for. So I think my favorite thing that I've learned is that I'm not too sensitive. It's okay to feel what I'm feeling. And I'm a man. Yeah, I'm a strong man, dude, and I can come back from
Amen.
stuff. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
become, I think, a lot more resilient, and I'm really proud of myself for not letting life get me down anymore, because I'm so freaking sick and tired of feeling sorry for myself, and I'm not going to do that anymore.
I love that. when's the last time you leaned into something that scared you? And you being on your first date and leaning into interviewing with us right now and having these intimacy cards that could be super edgy and have edgy topics.
I think I know your answer.
Yeah.
I think it might be this.
This, honestly, this.
That's perfect, and that's why I wanted to tie it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is edgy for a first date.
I know.
What's coming up? I'm curious, like, how are you feeling that you're doing this right now?
Well,
It's scary, right?
it is. I'm trying to be more, I feel like I'm very introverted and very shy, and I'm trying to like come out of my shell. All of this, something that like I would never naturally do, you know, if it wasn't for you.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, no, like please don't talk to me kind of thing.
We were talking about talking to strangers, and this kind of thing I'm very comfortable with, but I always remember that for a lot of people it's not. So thanks for doing it. I'm glad that you're doing it with me. I think it's really important to do things that scare me. I think the last thing that I remember was committing to music, because I talk to myself a lot when I'm alone, just because when I think it gets kind of jumbled up, or I could write it down, but I kind of have like a conversation with myself, like, think for a second, is this really what you want? And I remember I was learning the drums first, and then I started picking up the guitar, and I realized I was spending like hours and hours without even realizing I was doing it, and I never had that feeling. And I sat down in my house by myself, and I was doing music, and I sat down in my garage, I put all the instruments around me and the drum kit in the front, and I was like, is this what you want to do? You've never ever decided to stick with something in your entire life. Is this what you're going to do right now? Are you going to commit to this before you buy an electric guitar tomorrow? I really don't know how much time passed by realistically, and I said I do. And ever since then it's been going. But I remember it was so scary, because it's scary to commit to anything ever. But I'm really glad that I did it, because you need that thing to live. You need a thing. And I think part of not having a thing was attributing to my overall misery. I'm glad that I found it.
Both so much for leaning in here, and I learned a lot about you, so I'm hoping you both learned a lot about each other in this conversation.
Yeah.
And that you use some of our questions in your dating experience. And yeah, just thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
I feel at such peace because you're the second first date people we came across, and the first date people politely declined. And it just felt I couldn't leave this park until we spoke to people on a first date. So all right, we have our third interviewee. What's your name?
My name's Sarah.
Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. When we mentioned dating and intimacy and things like that, what was the topic that really was top of mind for you?
I literally just got broken up with like a week ago. So I am struggling a little bit with being like unlovable and like baggage, and if anyone can handle it. So that is what comes up for me. Yeah.
I hear you. Let's get into it with Courtney.
All right.
All right, so this is fresh for you. If you want to go into a little bit about what happened and what made you feel that way.
Sure. So I'm 3 years sober, and there's a lot that goes around that. There's a lot of work, and the past isn't very pretty.
Really honoring you in
yeah,
that and
thank
celebrating that for you.
And it's not a lighthearted subject that I literally have to like bring to a first date. Like you have to like dive in immediately and like tell people that. And like I said, it's not a pretty past. I believe I've done everything I've needed to do to make myself like dateable or just to pursue a healthy relationship. But as I uncover a little bit more of like what that looks like, boys tend to get scared, or like they think they can do it and they can't, which is really frustrating because I'm not asking them to do much. I'm like completely responsible for what I have to do, but it's still, you know, how do they tell their parents? Is that like a problem with kids in the future? So it's tough. I get mixed reviews in terms of like, that's awesome, or like that's a liability, you know?
What kind of support do you have in place for that?
Yeah, Austin has an incredible recovery community. I have a home meeting and 2 other meetings I go to in person. I have a sponsor. I go to therapy. I sponsor girls as well, which keeps me sober. I read lots of good stuff. You're supposed to have like some kind of faith attached to it, so I have that. So those are my big ones.
How do you navigate that on a first date? What does that look like, and how do you feel comfortable bringing it up with somebody?
Well, half the time, a guy asks if I want to get drinks, and I'm like, we can. One thing, like, it is like, I'll just order a water, like, or, you know, like that, it comes up pretty quick, and it's hard. I mean, like, I don't know if you have advice on it. Like, I feel like I have to tell them that. I feel like it's like, I don't want to like fool them into like, or like surprise them later on, like, by the way, like this big part of my life.
Okay.
And so I usually, I have a script and I say it very calmly, and I don't get too into it, but.
Do you mind if I coach you a little bit around
Please, yes.
I want to chime in one thing there, because I could go for a glass of wine here and there,
Yeah.
but I'm not a big drinker.
Sure.
I usually say, in my own dating experiences, I say like, hey, would you prefer a glass of wine or dessert? So that's the way I personally approach it, and I share your frustration in terms of people just assuming I want to get drinks. And so in your case, this is not advice, just if you like it, is like, hey, would you be open to getting like dessert or a smoothie instead? That's just my 2 cents. As a guy, I'd be like, that sounds great. I'm gonna pass it to Courtney for expert advice.
So I was gonna suggest actually the same thing. The go-to thing is, let's go get drinks. And it's like, well, I don't want to do that. Can you come up with something better and more creative? And then you can see like their effort level as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So does that kind of help?
Yeah, I usually try to opt in for like coffee or something
Yeah.
too, but that's helpful, honestly.
I would just say a non-negotiable going forward is never agree to meet someone
Yeah.
at a bar if that's not possible for you.
One quick male perspective. I love coffee. Sometimes if someone says, do you want to go for coffee? I perceive that as platonic.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to give that heads up. So if you're like, are you down for a date, but it's coffee instead? And just making sure it's a date, because coffee is like, I can't tell what she
Right.
means here. So that's the only like caveat I wanted to add.
I'm curious, are you open as someone who's sober to someone who still uses alcohol? and substances?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was something I grew into. About 2.5 years, I realized like I'm actually pretty comfortable around people now. I don't overexpose myself, but if I don't feel weird if like my partner wants to drink or not. The only boundary I ask is that if I have to like step out of the room, but like nothing on their part. Like it's my responsibility, and I'm like totally cool with them doing whatever they
So
want.
you did mention like you have a lot of support around your recovery and around working through some of these things. And so I'm curious, like your perspective when he wanted to shift the relationship, right? And he wanted to let it go. What came up for him?
There is some stuff from my past that was hard for him to get around.
Okay.
And to be perfectly honest, I do suffer from PTSD, and that can come out like physically sometimes, and as well as like just it's a lot to look at, and unless you're like kind of walking with me for a while to realize like how I deal with it,
Right.
and not just deal with it, but like I've like learned like within a couple of years, like I've started to thrive, like I'm doing really well actually, but it's a lot to take on.
You mentioned it off the get-go, so I want to open it if you want to talk about it. You mentioned the fear of being unlovable.
Sure.
So I think that would be an interesting, compelling thing that a lot of people can relate to if you want to dive into that.
I think the wording is like tough to love. I feel sometimes like it's hard to find someone to just like walk through like the rest that I have to like sort out sometimes. I don't know, like I'm just not the person like they want to parade around as much, or just the whole like 360 all parts of me is hard for them at some point. They can't get past like the initial attraction that happens like in the first 6 months or so, but then when it's like time to go deeper, they just don't want to, or they're scared to.
When you say tough to love, like what does that mean like from a tangibility perspective?
I think like tough to love meaning willing to go to like darker places or deeper places.
In terms of like conversation, can they hold like intense things, or are they going to
Sure,
scurry
I
away?
think holding intense things, planning more serious things in the future.
Commitment-wise?
Commitment-wise, yeah. Okay. We're still technically in the South, so there's people who want to get married like within the year, and I'm like, no, we should take our sweet time. I think like my family's kind of messy, and that can like kind of spook a little bit.
When did you start believing that you're tough to love?
I mean, always. Ever
Like since you were a kid,
like
or what?
high school.
Okay.
maybe before that too. I've literally like had a past boyfriend like look me in the face and said, "You are unlovable."
Is that how it started?
Maybe. I mean, it solidified it for sure. It's taken a lot of therapy to undo that. I've been like told pretty rough things in the past that are just like, "You're unlovable, you're crazy, this is a chore to love you," all of these things from someone who like is not mentally well. I know now. But when you're 15, 16, 17, like you fully take that in. It's a very developmental time. And so it's tough to like push down, I guess.
So the belief started when you were younger
Mm-hmm.
and just weren't doing so well. Do you still really believe that to be true?
I think it's still an intrusive thought sometimes. Even like during like our breakup, I stared him in the face and said, "I did nothing wrong." And he said, "You're right, you did nothing wrong." It's hard to like feel like you're like not look at the stats that you're like the common denominator, you know? But it's not as much as it used to be. A lot of work helped. But sorry y'all. But yeah, it still creeps in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
Of
this with
course.
us and being real about it. And I'm sure that everyone watching this is going to resonate in some way to feeling unlovable and unworthy and that they're too much or not enough.
You gotta be a real fucking narcissist to think that you're lovable 100% of the time.
Sure.
All your life.
Yeah, that's true. What I'm curious about is in all this, like, how are you showing up for yourself? And how do you love on yourself in moments that feel really hard to do that?
Yeah, I've had to do that a lot lately. Being outside is a big one, which is why I'm outside reading stuff that's like good for you, which I'm trying to do. It takes practice every day to look in the mirror and like say how lovable you are. I have to do like affirmations every night that like I'm lovable. I've had to like definitely split and like cut the difference between what's self-soothing, what's actually self-love, basically. I think the first time I was able to understand self-love was like, okay, how can you love yourself in the future? Do your dishes, clean up, like take a walk. Oh, my future me will be so happy about like what my past me did. You have to like fake it till you make it. You like tell yourself these things until one day like I actually like might believe that a little bit now. And you also just realize you're the only one you've got. All you have is
100%.
yourself. So, and no one else is like gonna do it for you.
At any point in this fight were you like, this isn't for me, before he actually said it?
Sure, yeah, that's like, I feel like that's normal. That was something I was really frustrated to explain because we're so early in. I'm like, I feel like we're not giving each other enough room to grow into each other, you know? I love giving the benefit of the doubt, which like maybe I should do less often. But no, it's not like a 100% I was sold and like never had a down thought about it. Something I learned early on I didn't realize was crossing boundaries in terms of I told him I wasn't in a rush for a couple of months to like talk about certain things, and he wanted to get deep at that moment. It's so early. We don't need to talk about kids or marriage quite yet. I didn't realize like that was pushing my boundaries actually.
I think that's it. You've been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think it's going to really help a lot of people.
Thanks for this, y'all. This was fun.
All right. We have Blake here and our expert Courtney.
Hi.
And so thank you so much for joining us.
Yep.
In the first few minutes when we were exploring what feels particularly alive for you on the topic of dating and intimacy and everything, you said communication. So walk us through the biggest challenge with that right now, and then I'll let Courtney take it away.
My partner being here helping me like communicate what is going on would be extremely helpful.
Oh, we got a guess.
Doesn't want to be on camera.
If you could just help me trigger a memory, that's like what I'm lacking.
We have your boyfriend here of how many years?
5 years.
Does anything come to mind for you?
Every day we have at least one occurrence where he says something in a tone or correctiveness or just like an attitude and I take it personally, or he says something and I take it completely different and he tries to even apologize or tell me what he means, but I'm already angry. So
Is there one topic that keeps coming up over and over for y'all recently? If you're saying every day, is it like the same thing every day, or is it the same wound getting hit every day?
tone or like how you're supposed to talk to somebody you love.
How do you feel like the tone comes off to you?
It comes across like he knows it all and I know nothing kind of sense.
Can you imitate what that sounds like? I want to role play this. Give me a situation and how to say it and then how you reacted.
Oh gosh, this is like really on the spot.
Oh, this is fun.
This is no judgment zone, though.
You've been together 5 years. You're ahead of most of the game. I'm gonna hop on camera.
The latest occurrence we had is that you're enrolling in school right now, right? And there was some sort of miscommunication that happened yesterday, right? And you were really emotionally upset about it. And I wanted to come in and see how you were doing, see what I could do to help. But you had already gone down the path of, this isn't happening, I'm upset, the night is ruined. I feel bad because I'm like painting this picture where I'm like trying to come in as a knight in shining armor and he's like this distressed person. That's not at all how like our relationship is. It's just one specific scenario. And I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like I was, you know, basically told to like go away, go to the other room, like you needed your space, and that's totally fine. But I was also not like emotionally okay with that being fine. I wanted to be there for you. Like that's how I feel like that's a responsibility of a partnership and a relationship. Like I do need to honor your space and what you request, but at the same time, like I want to be there for you. And it's hard for me to not to be able to be there for you in situations like that. So
In that instance, did you ever ask him what he actually needed?
I asked him, how can I help you? How can I make you, I want to make you feel better.
I just didn't feel like what he was gonna say to me was gonna help me because he always comes across as like fathering or condescending. He just doesn't understand like what I'm going through in that moment, how I'm feeling, because he always thinks that it's easy, like what's the big deal?
Okay. So when you're pissed off, what do you want from him?
Just understanding. Let me tell you how I'm feeling and just put aside how you feel. Just level to me and be like, I can see how that's frustrating to you. You've worked really hard and these people aren't being fair and communicating to you. I mean, don't give up. Like, of course that's a good thing to say, but also it's late in the day. Let's just calm down and we'll check back tomorrow and see if there's anything we can do.
So what I'm hearing is when you're distressed, you just want to be heard.
Pretty much.
And does he come in and kind of try to fix it? Or like neutralize your anger?
He wants to neutralize it, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like there's a lot of layers and he only gets the one layer, surface value. And I'm like, I just want you to understand I'm overwhelmed to the max and I don't want you coming in here and saying you should have been on top of it or this could have been different.
Do you have anything to say?
So basically, it's kind of like you were scared to open up and talk to me yesterday because you were afraid that I was gonna say you did something wrong, or I was gonna try and father you when you were kind of looking for just like an emotional support moment. Is that right?
Maybe, but at the same time, I was so mad and frustrated. I didn't want to take it out on you.
Yeah, and that's fair. You know, when you are so emotionally built up and pent up, we need space. I understand that.
I have so much like built up that I feel like overwhelmed. Like I don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I would just rather lay here with nobody talking to me. I just need a second to gather everything that's going on in my head.
So I think that's beautiful, and it's really important when we're really activated to just name what we need from the other person. Like, hey, I'm really activated right now. I'm pissed off. I don't want to take this out on you. I need space. And then you get to go and like you get to sit with that and figure out what part of you is like wanting to save him from this experience. Because like we never want to see people we love hurting, but like there's some medicine in this for him to kind of like work through and be able to also ask for what he needs.
Also has an anxious attachment. Like, do you think I really wanted him to be away from me in that moment?
No.
I think I really truly needed him.
It's like, I don't want you to be here. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And
I love you.
I love you. Come hug me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, I need to know you're there, but maybe not in my face.
I was like, do you just want to cuddle in silence? Is that it? And he's like, get out of the room.
So in those moments, it's kind of like acknowledging him. I love you. I see you. I'm not going anywhere. I want your messiness. And I can see that you need space. So let me know if that changes. Most of the times people just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be fixed, or they want you to be like, well, you should have done this and you should have done that. And this would have been a better approach. And this is what I think. And they're like, you're not even here anymore. You're in your own process. You just want to answer me. That's another thing in conflict. Are we listening to understand? Are we listening to respond?
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that? About this conversation? Do you have any takeaways from it so far?
I hope that we implement that more, which is just, hey, are we talking right now to try and resolve a problem, or do you just need to be heard and you need to be silent and just listen to you? And that is definitely something that we could take away from this conversation and do more of. It's like something that you know that needs to happen in the back of your head. It's not really, you're not intentional with it all the time. And that's another thing that we need to focus on, is our intentionality in our relationship. So yeah, that's a good takeaway.
Beautiful. I love that.
Cool.
Thank you both. Welcome
That
our
was
next
lovely.
guest. Who do we have here?
Lily Campbell.
Nice to meet you.
So, Lily, we heard a little bit about your story already, but just to dive in, I'm curious, you mentioned that you met your partner on Hinge, and where were you at in your life, and what were you looking for at that time that you feel like you could call in someone who was ready to receive you?
A lot of people look at dating apps as, just having fun, dating around, playing around, but I was really looking for my life partner, and I never ever thought that I would find that. But one day I got a notification that this boy named Hunter sent me a rose, and it was a done deal from there.
What were you specifically looking for in a partnership in that person?
I wanted a man that had goals and that was driven, that was independent, that had hobbies, that did not play video games, just basically a complete flip side of what I had dated in the past. And he just surprised me on all fronts. He's been the most caring, kind, sweet, understanding partner I could ever ask for.
What do you think you had to do to become someone who could receive him, though?
Had to spend a lot of time on my own, really think about what I wanted from a partner, what I was doing, what I was giving, and what I was not receiving. Just, I wanted to be able to find that balance, because I'm a great partner. I'm super caring. My parents have been married for 38 years. I've had a great family life, and I just wanted to find a partner that was, going to share the same values as me.
I love that. And then you also mentioned that on this process, right, you said you've been dating about a year, and you mentioned getting off hormonal birth control in the middle of your relationship.
So
tell me how you navigated that.
About, I guess, like 6 or 7 months in, I had, wanted to take a more natural approach to my health and birth control. I had an IUD for about 7 years and never had a cycle, never had a period, and it was just kind of like, I don't know, just felt really in touch with my body, and I really wanted to get in tune with that. So my decision to come off of birth control, he didn't even bat an eye. He was like, if that's what you want to do, I will fully support you, and we'll navigate this together. We'll both learn. We'll figure out your needs. I know it's going to be tough. Your body's not going to be regulated as much, but I'm there for you, and I know that in the long run this is going to be super important for you, and it'll be the best decision that you can make for yourself, and that's all that I want.
I love that. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And how do you feel like your intimacy has shifted since you've been off birth control?
I guess having to use protection has been the only thing that's changed.
Okay.
But, still, let's see, I got off of it December, it's April now, so I've gotten a little bit more of an idea of my ovulation times, my windows, when it's not safe, and we just do other things, which makes it fun. At the end of the day, it's your body, your choice, and your partner should stick by you in whatever you decide if it's going to better your future and better your relationship.
Right.
And, some people could have a little bit of tension around that topic because, it does change your sex life, but it doesn't have to be for the worse.
Right.
I don't want anything unnatural in my body.
Do you think Hunter is a unicorn of sorts, or do you have faith that a lot of other guys will share the perspective of him to where it'll be a supportive conversation rather than an argument for other women who want to take that same route?
I guess in my mind, I never thought that my partner that a man would ever say no to that, because it's not up to them. And even if they don't like it, they have to deal with it, So if that is something that you have to navigate, that's really tough. And I'm sorry, but maybe he's not the man for you,
Courtney, I think you were alluding to that either there's a fear, whether it's based in other people's experiences or just the fear of possible rejection if someone were to go that route. So can you elaborate on, as a man, I don't know the female psyche, so can you elaborate on that kind of concern that you have noticed or at least become aware of?
Well, I can share my experience with birth control. I haven't taken it in 15 years, but actually birth control shifts your hormones in your brain, and it can actually chemically make you attracted to people who you wouldn't be attracted to if you weren't on birth control. So I think the issue sometimes is that women are on birth control and they learn about this and then they want to get off of it. And they're like, am I still going to be attracted to my partner? Are we still going to be able to have the same sex that we were having? I became a different person on birth control. Like, I was like having suicidal ideations, and I was just like not myself, and was like, what is happening to me? And the one thing was birth control. So we're kind of taking this topic a little bit toward that, but it's like we don't understand that this pill impacts our whole lives. And I think when you're in partnership, you're worried of like, okay, they had nothing to worry about before. When we're in the natural cycle, we feel more, we move through more present, we're more grounded, we're more centered, and we should want that for anyone in our lives.
Thank you both. Courtney, we have just wrapped up our lovely day at the park. My skin is ready for this break. We're done. How do you feel? This is your first guest appearance on the Jared Gold Show.
Yeah.
I thought you did great. You're a natural interviewer.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining me. Really quickly, how did it feel to get rejected so many times by strangers?
Oh my gosh, it's exhausting. I literally don't know how you do this by yourself. I would need moral support to help me keep going.
You made it so much easier. I am very grateful for it. It felt like nothing. When you're alone, you're walking away alone. What did you think of the conversations?
The coolest thing is to experience someone's first date with them. And like, she was so willing to lean into the conversation, which was really awesome. And also the woman who shared about her recent breakup. You just never know what someone's going through. And interestingly enough, though, no matter where we're at in our relationships, we are all simultaneously fighting the same things of unworthiness or not enoughness or feeling unlovable.
Was it really eye-opening?
It was really eye-opening. I just feel like we met so many different people in different stages. I typically work with heterosexual relationships, and I have a lot more experience with women. And so interviewing the men that we did about this and the different age groups and just people at different levels was so interesting to me. And yeah, I never knew where the conversation was going to go.
I think we interviewed like some pretty evolved people. I don't think they represent the norm in a lot of ways, or maybe this is the norm now. And these people are like a different age group. I'm 33. And yeah, I was just really impressed by the people's perspectives and what they were willing to share. I'm like, man, if this is like the climate of what people are like now, I have hope. I'm optimistic.
I have hope. I know we had some reservations about approaching certain people that are younger. And when we did, it ended up being really beautiful.
They're way ahead of us. I got to stop judging. Thanks so much for watching. And please like and subscribe for more wild, random conversations with strangers.